Welcome to Biblical Theology Today, and we want to look at Ezekiel 36:22 through 36, my favorite Old Testament passage, and I want to do a series of videos just on some observations of this passage. For me, this passage is like the Midway Island. If you're flying from Los Angeles to Tokyo, in the olden days, you couldn't make the whole way. You had to have a midway point, and Midway Island was that place. Well, to me, Ezekiel 36 is like the Midway Island between the Old Testament and the New. It's the central point. It ties so much of the Old Testament together. In fact, I think that this passage is so important that Christians and pastors should make this study of this passage part of their everyday experience. And one of the reasons I believe that is because of the prominent use Ezekiel 36:22 and following has in the New Testament. It's in the Lord's Prayer. We're going to look at that together. It's in Romans 2, part of Paul's argument there. You could argue that it's in the background in 9:11. Ezekiel 36 forms some of the backbone to Revelation, and you can make the argument that Revelation is Ezekiel 2.0. And in John 21, Jesus 20, John 20, Jesus takes part of the exegesis of Ezekiel 36 as it's explained through prophetic action in Ezekiel 37, and he applies that to the disciples. So this passage, Ezekiel 36 and following, is so key to New Testament exegesis, and so I want to do some videos about it. And I want to try to defend this point that it's part of the Lord's Prayer. So when we come to the passage, the prominent passage in Hebrew, Vekadashti et Shemi Hagadol, and I will kadash, definite direct object marker, my name. What kind of my name is it? It's the holy name. I will kadashti, my holy name. Now, this word kadashti is from kadash, and it's the word holy, but it's in the piel, doubled middle radical here in a converted perfect form. I will make mega holy. I will greatly make holy. I will intensively make holy my name, something like that. And you might say, well, where is that quoted in the New Testament? Well, if we look at some English translations, it's probably not quoted. So wonderful translation I use all the time, the ESV. This is a screenshot from Logos Text Compare feature. I will vindicate the holiness of my great name. So they're looking at the Peel of Kadash, and they're choosing this word vindicate. And in that, they're following the New American Standard. The NIV says, I will show the holiness of my great name. And the New Revised Standard, I will sanctify my great name. So major translations, current translations, and pretty radical differences between those. If we look at even more, the New Living, which I like, but I either radically agree with the NLT or radically disagree. It's kind of like a home run slugger for me. Sometimes I really like it and sometimes I really don't. But they go, well, I will show how holy my great name is. ASV, I will sanctify. The ERV, I will sanctify my great name. So we're all trying to get at what this PL of kadash is. Now, if we keep going and look at older ones, we've got I will sanctify, Geneva Bible, GW, I think it was God's word, I will reveal the holiness of my name. The HCSB, I will honor the holiness. And then the King James, I will sanctify. So a lot of differences. I would like to suggest the word hallow. I will hallow my great name. And I hope if the ESV is ever revised, whoever's on that committee will consider translating I will hallow, because I think you can make the argument that Jesus is quoting this part in the Lord's Prayer. Hallowed be thy name. Here God is promising that he will hallow his name, and Jesus says to his disciples, whenever you pray, pray to the Father, your name be made holy, your name be hallowed. When we go with any of these modern translations that we've looked at, none of those are connecting the text with the Lord's Prayer, but I want to make the argument that Jesus is quoting this in the Lord's Prayer as part of the exegetical observation for today. And here's why I think he's quoting it. So here we have the text, and this is the Greek translation of the Hebrew text. So the Greek translation is called a Septuagint, and in the Septuagint, this is the verb I will make holy, or make holy, hagiadzo, and this is the ending I will do it. And the Lord is speaking, I will make holy the name of me. Well, you can see when Jesus gives the Lord's Prayer, and this is Matthew's version, but I think it's exactly the same in Luke's version, he takes that same verb, hagiadzo, and he simply puts the future passive ending, third masculine singular, or third singular future passive ending, your name be made holy. So God says, I will make my name holy. How will I do it? Well, when I fulfill the promises in Ezekiel 36. And Jesus says the very first thing you need to pray every single day, whenever you pray, always pray that God would fulfill this promise. Now, what we're going to see is that Ezekiel 36:22 through 36 is a fuller explanation of Jeremiah's outline of the new covenant. And the new covenant is obviously central to what Jesus came to do. So Jesus said, this is the new covenant in my blood. And Ezekiel 36:22 through 36 is the fullest outline of what the new covenant is. And the very beginning of that new covenant is God promised that he will make his name holy. And Jesus said, you pray, every single time you pray, constantly pray, may your name be made holy, or may your name be hallowed, or in the kind of liturgical tradition, hallowed be thy name. I think in our translations, we should go in Ezekiel 36 with this translation hallow, or I will utterly hallow, or I will intensely hallow my name. Because if we did that, then a child could make this connection. But if we go with the modern translations of vindicate holiness, show holiness, sanctify, it's very difficult for the English reader to pick up that Jesus is actually quoting this text. And so I think all our modern should be revised here in Ezekiel 36 to help English readers, to help the people in the pew make the connection between what Jesus is telling us to pray and what God is promising to do. Now, you might say, well, who are you? You know, all these people made all these translations, and like you're not their equal, so why should you suggest that translation should be changed? Well, that is a great question. But in this instance, the evidence is on my side, because while none of the modern translations connect these two passages, and if I had my act together, I would have put a series of slides of scholars who are connecting Ezekiel 36:23 with the Lord's Prayer. Perhaps I'll do that in another video. A lot of really good scholars make that connection. Haven't done it for this slide, but I will. But I can, in this video, say that all the ancient translations that have survived the test of time, they all connect these passages. And let's look at some. So this is probably the most famous translation after the Septuagint. This is the Latin Vulgate. And you can see that Jerome in the Vulgate, my Latin isn't as good as I would like it to be, but you can see that's the future. I will sanctify the name of me. And you can see he's just following, I will make holy the name of me. And then when he does the New Testament, he picks that same word, but he does it in the passive. Your name be made holy. And so, however, this is translated, a child reading, with people in a past age learn Latin, a child can make that connection. Jesus is quoting that passage. So we've got the Vulgate is on my side for hallowed, if we're going to do it with hallow, which is Tyndale's suggestion. We should do them in both places so that people could make that connection. So the Vulgate is clearly on my side, and it's true, who am I? Well, I'm not really anybody, but it's not, the modern world against me. It's the modern world against the ancient world, and the ancient world is clearly against our modern translations on this point. Well, is the Vulgate the only one that does that? Well, they're not. There's another ancient translation, a very popular one after the Septuagint and the Vulgate, is a translation called the Peshitta. And the Peshitta means something like the plain translation. We don't know who did it, whether it was Christians or Jews, but it's kind of like an New American Standard, but ancient people did it. And so this is Leiden Peshitta from Ezekiel 36. And this is the word I, and this is the word holy, make holy. And this is the word my, and this is the word name. So you can see the Peshitta has just translated this exactly rightly. The name of me. Well, how does the New Testament Peshitta do the Lord's Prayer? Well, this is the verb. So again, my Syriac isn't as good as I would like it to be. This text is actually a pointed text. I wish there were a pointed text in Estrangela, for the Old Testament. There is in Serto, but Serto is, at least for me, a lot harder to read than Estrangela. But anyway, you can see that the New Testament has the I don't know what you call that, reflexive, passive reflexive, but you can see that this word kadash is exactly the same as this word, and you can see the word name is exactly the same, and so the only difference is your name versus my name. So this is God's promise where he says, I will make holy my name, and then the Lord's Prayer, your name be made holy. So they're using the same word to translate both passages. Well, if you have the standard Greek, that is the same word, Jesus is Greek in Matthew and in Luke, if it's the same word. If the Vulgate is the same word, if the Peshitta is the same word, then why in the world do we have 50 English translations in the modern age, and no one took this time to think, hey, Jesus may be quoting this passage? What we'll see next time, I'll do a similar thing. It's not like it's not in the scholarly literature. It's in the scholarly literature that Jesus is alluding to Ezekiel 36, 22 through 36. So that's my observations for today. Listen, I hope you find this helpful, and I'll look forward to talking to you next time.